Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. Last week we managed to start a background campaign on the channel in the form of Hero Realms. As I mentioned in that video, I'll plan on stepping in and out of the background campaign with other content on the channel. This week we're going to step back into the Pandemic system again, and we're going back to the Cthulhu mythos as we play Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. When we played this game back in September of last year, link to that playthrough will be in the description down below, we almost won, but Mel had other plans for us and we lost by the skin of our teeth. Anyway, as a quick refresher, in this game we're trying to stop Cthulhu from waking up by sealing gates of the four main cities in the mythos: Arkham, Innsmouth, Dunwich, and Kingsport. That's our one road to victory, but as is typical of the mythos, we can lose in several ways. We lose if we need to place an enemy token, Cultists or Shoggoth, but we can't. We need to draw a player card, but can't. All of our investigators go insane, or Cthulhu wakes up. That's what we're up against, so now let's go meet today's investigators. Here's our first investigator for today, the Occultist. So there's what her mini looks. There's what the mini for the Occultist looks like. I'll bring her up to the train station since that's, I believe that's where we start the game. Let me just double check that. Yes, at the train station in Arkham. Okay. So we'll take a quick look at the Occultist's card. Every character gets 4 actions. As an action, I can move one Cultist up to 2 locations, and for 2 actions, I can move a Shoggoth 1 location. And you'll have 4 actions on your turn. So anyway, let's take a look at the Occultist's starting hand. First up we have a Dunwich. We'll need those clue cards to seal the gates that are in the cities. We have an Arkham, a Kingsport, and another Kingsport. So moving those over to the Occultist might not be the worst idea, but anyway, I do want to mention the lens cap for the camera real quick, which is up here. I'm mostly just using that as a turn indicator. Most of the time we'll be at the board or up top if we have to resolve an Evil Stirs card, but that's something I'm going to use off camera to help me keep everything straight. But anyway, that will do it for the Occultist. Now let's go meet her partner. The Occultist partner today is the Hunter. So there's the Hunter Mini. We'll go ahead and bring her up to Arkham, to the train station as well. I'll say it in English one of these days. Then looking at the Hunter, these are both sane side up. We'll go through the insane side if an investigator goes insane. Remove all cultists when doing a defeat a cultist action. Once per turn, you may defeat a Shoggoth for only 1 action. So normally it costs 3 actions to defeat a Shoggoth, but the Hunter can actually, once per turn, can defeat it for 1 action. So let's take a look at the Hunter's starting cards. Starting hand, and we'll figure out where we need to what we need to concentrate where. So first card up is another Kingsport, which can potentially move over to the Occultist. We have an Innsmouth, another Kingsport, and an Innsmouth. So we could really move Kingsport in either direction, but before we move back up top to do setup, to finish up setup, I'll mention my house rule here for the trade action. It's exactly the same as I use in Pandemic: Fall of Rome, but it's slightly more forgiving since the player cards here aren't tied to the individual spaces like they are in various other Pandemic games. So as long as the investigators are in the same space, they can trade cards whatever cards they want. With that, let's move back up top and we'll finish up setup. You're probably looking at the board thinking, hey Phoenix Knight, this board looks a little empty for a game of Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. Yes it is, because we don't have initial enemies yet. That's what brings us up top. So we'll draw, the first 2 cards we're going to draw from the Cultist deck are going to give us 3 Cultists. So I've already shuffled and prepared all the decks and all of that off camera. So our first card that's going to get 3 Cultists is the Diner. So the Diner gets 3 Cultists, which is way over here. Then the Theater also gets 3 Cultists, which is down here in Kingsport, kind of out of the way. So 3 cultists there. And these next 2 are going to get 2 cultists apiece. The docks gets 2 cultists. Now, I do want to mention this symbol while I've got it right here. We don't have to pay attention to it now, but when it comes up during the game, that means the Shoggoth will move. If it's on the board, the Shoggoth will move to the nearest gate space. So the docks and Innsmouth gets 2 cultists. This next location also gets 2. The Historic Inn gets 2 cultists. So that's the bus station down in Dunwich. Now these next 2 cards get 1 cultist. The Woods gets a cultist, which is down here in Kingsport. And the Market gets a cultist. And this last location gets a Shoggoth. The Swamp down in Dunwich. So that first Shoggoth is going to be moving toward the gate. Yep, the gate in Dunwich. So I may send the I may plan on sending the hunter down right away to deal with it, but that's all set up, ready to go, and we're ready to go with the game. So let's drop down to the board and get this game started, and we'll start with the Occultist. For 2 actions, I'm immediately going to take advantage of the house rule on the trade action and trade the 2 Hunter's Kingsport cards over to the Occultist. Then for action 3, I'm going to toss her Arkham so I can travel anywhere, and we'll actually transition to her destination, which will be in Kingsport. We've arrived in Kingsport with action 3. Action 4, we'll take out the Cultist at the Market. My plan is, if nothing goes haywire, probably clearing out some of the either clearing out some of the cultists down here in the theater, so that when an Evil Stirs comes up, that's not immediately going to be an awakening space, or moving down to the graveyard and sealing Kingsport right off the bat. So anyway, 2 cards from the player deck. First up we find an Innsmouth, which we could move over to which we could move back over to the Hunter. And another Kingsport. So that might make my next turn real easy, but we need 2 player cards from the summoning deck, so I'm going to move back most of the way up top so I can see where I got to put these. So first up we find the Great Hall gets a Cultist and the Shoggoth moves. So the Great Hall gets a Cultist, and the Shoggoth moves from the swamp over to the farmstead, because once again we have the symbol for the Shoggoth moving. And the University with the Shoggoth moving again. So that's actually very helpful, because that'll move the Shoggoth up to the church, and it'll save the Hunter an action if I want to go deal with that Shoggoth right away, which I might do, because neither of our locations are going to be problematic until we shuffle the disc, until Cultists regroup from an Evil Stirs. So, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, though. Let's move back to the Hunter. The Hunter's first 2 actions will take her down to the church, so we'll move down to the cafe for 1, church for 2, but we need the dice tower in shot. I'm going to use my less imposing tower so I can roll the sanity die. So this is one of the times where we have to roll a sanity die when we enter a space with a Shoggoth. And based on the effect, we have different things that we have to do. Alright, so the Hunter loses a sanity, which is a small price to pay for what we're going to be doing. Action 3, she will defeat the Cultist. She'll defeat the Shoggoth using her special once per turn action, and then she'll draw a relic card. She will draw the Alien Carving. The active player can take 3 extra actions this turn, which I kind of don't need. So action 4 is going to be to move her to the Historic Inn and plan on clearing these cultists out next turn. Then we'll get 2 player cards, one of which we'll probably use for traveling. So first up we find a Dunwich, which we can use to move anywhere if we want, and that might not be a terrible idea. And our first Evil Stirs. That didn't take long. So let's move back up top and we'll resolve this Evil Stirs. Alright, so the first step on an Evil Stirs is we fight the madness, so we have to roll a sanity die for the second time this round. First time because we moved into space with a Shoggoth. Okay, nothing happens there. That's kind of a relief. Then the next step is we reveal the next old one, which is actually our first old one. It also advances us down the summoning track, but nothing changes here. So we find our first old one is Nyarlathotep. Investigators may no longer do the use a gate action. There's an infinite symbol on here, which means that ability is active for the rest of the game. Now there is a relic that can potentially let us ignore that, but we've got to see that come up. Anyway, we go to the next step is we go to the bottom card of the summoning deck to spawn another Shoggoth on the board. So this Shoggoth will go to the police station up in Arkham. So we'll spawn that up there. And then last and probably most problematic, Cultists regroup. So we shuffle the discard pile and put it back on top. Now this could be very dangerous because if we draw two cards that move the Shoggoth, we'll get that Shoggoth off the board immediately to Arkham, and we'll have to awaken another old one. This could also be bad if both of our spaces are 3 cultist spaces before we have a chance to work on getting those cultists cleared out. Alright, give that a cut and put that back on top. And now we still have to summon cultists. So we are summoning at 2 locations. So first up, the Great Hall gets a cultist and the Shoggoth moves. So we're basically halfway to things going almost completely sideways. Great Hall gets a cultist, Shoggoth moves to the gate, and the theater gets a cultist, except it doesn't because that's our 4th cultist, and so we trigger another awakening, which means we awaken another old one. This time we awaken Atlak Naka. Each investigator puts 1 cultist on their location unless they choose to lose 1 sanity. An investigator may not lose their last sanity token to prevent this cultist placement. The hunter... this could be bad. So I'm going to have the occultist lose a sanity because my plan was to go into the theater. My plan had been to go seal the gate at Kingsport, but now that we've reshuffled, well, we're not going to have a problem until we reshuffle the deck again, now that I think about it. So maybe I still go... Maybe do I still go seal Kingsport? I don't think I can take that risk right now. Yeah, I think we can just lose the sanity. 1, 2, seal. Okay, no, this will still work, especially since we just drew it. So since we just drew the theater, so I will have the hunter or the occultist lose a sanity. The hunter, however, is in a little bit more of a precarious position because we just reshuffled the deck, and it's going to mean ducking 1 turn of the historic inn coming out. So I think I can't get her up to Arkham in time to stop that Shoggoth moving off the board. So Do I just place the Cultist and pray? Because if it gets back to the Cultists, if it gets back to the Hunter's turn again, she's going to be able to take those Cultists on the Historic Inn out. So yeah, I think we just place the Cultist on the... I think we just place the Cultist on the Historic Inn and hope that the Hunter can... we can duck the... Hopefully we can duck the Historic Inn on this summoning turn. This next summoning turn. But I'm kind of getting a little rambly now. So let's go move back down to the Occultist. The Occultist is going to move action 1 to the wharf, action 2 to the graveyard, action 3 she'll discard her 5 Kingsport cards to get our first seal on the board. And then action 4 she'll move back up to the wharf. I'll plan on bringing her back down and dealing with the theater next turn. Anyway, 2 player cards. We find an Innsmouth, which is probably going to be... which might be travel fodder at this point, and... the Zaus Mirror, a relic. You can swap 1 clue card from your hand with a clue card in another player's hand, regardless of where either of you are. So that'll let us take anything from across the board. But here's where we're hoping for no whammy, no whammy, no whammy, because we have the potential to rip... we unfortunately have the potential to pull a lot of Ancient Ones off the summoning track. But we are only summoning 2 this turn, no matter how far we advance. So, first card up... the Diner, which triggers another Awakening. So our next Ancient One is Sithagwa. All players collectively discard 2, 3, or 4 cards with 2, 3, or 4 players. Well, that kind of blows. So I think I'll toss the Occultist's Innsmouth and one of the Occultist's Innsmouth and the Hunters. We haven't seen a lot of Dunwich come up. I think they're probably buried a little deeper in the deck, so we'll have to toss a Dunwich. That was our first summoning, so our second summoning card. The Market gets another Cultist. So at least we don't have the Shoggoth move again, but more importantly, we did duck the Historic Inn. And I think I tossed the wrong card for the Hunter. So I'm going to rewind that a little bit because I realize I'm going to need the Dunwich to be able to get out of this mess. So instead, the Hunter is going to discard an Innsmouth card. Anyway, that will do it for the Occultist's turn. Now let's move down to the Hunter. We actually can fix this mess that we're in right now, and I've got all the spaces I'm going to need to do that in shot. So for action 1, the Hunter's going to defeat all of the Cultists on her space, because that's her special ability. Action 2 will discard Dunwich, which will let her move to any location on the board. So she's going to move, since she's in Dunwich, so we're going to move her to the Park in Arkham. Then we have to roll the Sanity die, because we entered the space with a Shoggoth. Lose another Sanity for entering a space with a Shoggoth. Action 3, she'll defeat the aforementioned Shoggoth for 1 action and get another relic she will find. The Elder Sign. Pick a town. If its gate has been sealed, no new Cultist or Shoggoth may be placed in that town. As a reminder, flip the seal token to show the Elder Sign. Do we immediately toss that? Just permanently seal Kingsport? That actually might not be a terrible idea, especially with Kingsport being as problematic as it is. The only thing I hesitate about is it will require a sanity roll to use it. But yeah, I think given that we're basically... that also kind of frees our hands to work on the other 3 cities in the mythos. So I think we will immediately toss the Elder Sign to permanently seal Kingsport, which means nothing can spawn there. So red cards are dead cards. So from the summoning deck, red cards are dead cards. So we want to start seeing lots of red. But the sanity roll for using that will continue eating at the Hunter's sanity. That was action Action 1 was to defeat the Cultist, Action 2 was to travel, 3 was to defeat the Shoggoth, and 4 will work the Hunter over toward the Diner, where we'll defeat those 3. We'll plan on defeating those 3 Hunter, or those 3 Cultists in the next turn. But we need 2 player cards. 1, 2. Alright, so card 1 is another Kingsport, which is probably travel fodder at this point, or discard fodder, and Arkham, which we need to start getting those Arkham cards built back up. Then we summon we have 2 summoning cards. Card 1. The Dox gets a Cultist, and the Shoggoth would move, except there's no Shoggoth on the board right now. So that's going to be another problem once the deck shuffles, and the Swamp gets a Cultist, and the Shoggoth would move again, but there is no Shoggoth on the board right now, thanks to the Hunter. Anyway, that will do it for the Hunter. Now let's move back down to the Occultist. I think over the next few turns, now that we're not spawning anything else in Kingsport, if I can get that cleared out, then I can probably just free my hand and go move elsewhere. So for action 1, the Occultist is going to use her special ability to pull one of the Cultists out of the theater up to the market. Action 2, she's going to move into the market. Then for actions 3 and 4, she's going to defeat those 2 Cultists. And then we need 2 more cards out of the player deck. We find a Dunwich, which we need, and another Dunwich, so that's actually working out very well. And then we have 2 cards from the Cultist deck. We find the police station gets a Cultist, as does the Historic Inn, and the Shoggoth would move. Good thing we actually kind of got away with trying to duck the Historic Inn with the Shoggoth, or with the Hunter. But anyway, that will do it for the Occultist. Speaking of the Hunter, let's move to her turn. Hunter's action 1 is going to be to move over to the Diner. Action 2, all 3 Cultists go bye-bye. Action 3, move to the Junkyard. Action 4, move to the Pawn Shop. Then we get 2 cards from the player deck. We find another Dunwich, which I will probably be trying to move over to the Occultist at some point. And a Kingsport, which is probably going to be travel fodder. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We need 2 cards from the player deck, or the summoning deck. The Woods would get a Cultist, except thanks to our use of the Elder Sign, it doesn't. And the University gets a Cultist, and the Shoggoth would move, but once again, no Shoggoth on the board. So that will do it for the Hunter. Now let's see what we can do with the Occultist. I can get both of them in shot, and the Occultist isn't moving for a little while. So for actions 1 and 2, actually for actions 1 and 2, she's going to move the last 2 Cultists from the theater up to her, and then 3 and 4, she'll defeat them. And then we need 2 more cards from the player deck. We find Arkham, which we'll need for sealing gates, and Innsmouth, which we can really concentrate in either place. So I do have to watch out. I do have to watch hand sizes at this point, because we will have to discard. But anyway, two more Cultists from the summoning deck are going out. The Farmstead gets a Cultist. And the Graveyard's getting a Cultist, except it doesn't because it's trying to spawn in Kingsport, and the Elder Sign is active in Kingsport right now. Over to the Hunter for her turn. Her turn is going to be very simple. 1, 2, 3 Cultists go bye-bye for 4. 2 more cards from the player deck for the Hunter. Innsmouth, which now we need to start looking at the possibility of trying to get the 2 of them together to move Innsmouth over. And Dunwich, which actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to have to discard, and we're going to discard a Kingsport, which is very handy discard fodder right now. Anyway, 2 more cards from the summoning deck. We find the Wharf would get a Cultist, except it doesn't because, once again, Kingsport. And the Boardwalk gets a Cultist, which is unfortunately Innsmouth, so that does get a Cultist. Anyway, that is it for the Hunter on this turn. The Occultist is going to start working her way toward meeting up with the Hunter. So for action 1, she's going to move to the woods. Action 2, she'll pull a Cultist from the Great Hall to her. Actions 3 and 4, she'll defeat both of them. And then we will use the Zaus Mirror to move... I think I'm going to pull a Dunwich clue card over to her hand. So now we've got 4 clue cards with the Occultist. We don't have to discard because we used the Relic, but we do have to roll the Sanity die because we used a Relic. Should be able to get the Dice Tower right there. Perfect. And we lose, nothing happens for the Occultists. That's fortunate. Let's see. Action 1 to move up, 2 to pull the Cultist, 3 and 4 to take it out. Okay, to take them both out. And then we need 2 cards from the player deck. First up is another Arkham, but I'm going to have to discard something. I really don't want to toss anything right now, honestly. I just toss... What do we have right now in the discard pile? We have mostly Kingsport. I guess we'll just have to toss an Arkham right now. And another Arkham, which, as much as this hurts, I've got to toss it. Because I'm at my hand limit. So anyway, 2 more cards from the summoning deck. We find Train Station gets a Cultist, which is our starting space. Whoop, the Hunter should be there. And the Park gets a Cultist. So the Park, Gate on Arkham. Alright, that will do it for the Occultist. Now the Hunter, do I want to risk her sanity for 3 extra actions? I don't think I do, so I'll just move the Hunter to the Occultist for action 1. Action 2, I'll pull Arkham over to the Hunter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She wants to discard, but she will when I pull Innsmouth over. I'll have to toss... I'll toss the Kingsport, which is actually very good discard fodder. And then for action 4, I'll give the Occultist the last Dunwich card she needs. So I'm going to plan on passing Innsmouth over to the Hunter and then splitting them up again. So now 2 more cards from the player deck. The Hunter finds our second Evil Stirs, which will move up top in a second to resolve, and Alhazred's Flame. You may remove up to 4 Cultists or a Shoggoth from anywhere on the board. So if we are really desperate, we can use this to clear out the board. But anyway, so that brings her up to her hand size. With that, let's move back up top to resolve this Evil Stirs. Dice Tower's in shot. First step of Evil Stirs, fight the madness with the Sanity die. 2 cultists on the woods, which I was planning on getting. Oh no, they can't spawn in Kingsport because once again the Elder Sign is doing its thing. So that's actually basically as long as we're in Kingsport, that 2 cultists face is also a dead face on the die. Is basically a blank. So now we reveal the next old one, and it's going to cause us to summon 3 cultists. Dagon places 1 cultist on each gate location, open or closed. So that's 1 cultist on every gate except Kingsport, once again because of the Elder Sign. So the old mill, the park, and the hospital. Then a Shoggoth appears. And we find the Shoggoth. Goes to the cafe, which it can do. So it's going to be looking to go to the old mill. It's going to be trying to go out through the Dunwich Gate. And then cultists regroup. So now, fortunately, right now, we have no problematic locations going into the deck. So, yeah. I'm going to see if I can get the occultist over to the Dunwich Gate before. Basically, we're going to have to race the Shoggoth over there, but now that we're drawing 3 cards, that might be a tough race to win. Of course, it's also possible that we just pull 3 Shoggoth moves location cards and just basically get hosed on that. That is a thing that could happen. Anyway. By the way, that's rhetorical, God, not hold my beer. Anyway. Card 1 for the summoning. The train station. Whoop. That should be. Yeah. Okay, that should all be on top. But the train station gets a cultist. The farmstead gets a cultist. That's down in Dunwich. And the graveyard gets a cultist, except it doesn't because Kingsport is a thing. So we actually did kind of get away with one there. But anyway, that will do it for the hunter's turn. Yeah. Now the occultist. Do we just try to race over to. Do we race over to Dunwich? Or do I figure there's a chance that we're going to just get the. Or do I figure there's a chance we're just going to get the Shoggoth off the board before we can seal Dunwich? Here's what I think we do. I think for the Occultist's turn, action 1, she'll move to the Great Hall. Action 2 to the Swamp. Action 3 to the Farmstead. And I'll stop here because if the Shoggoth moves, we would potentially meet up in the church, and I don't want to risk sanity right now. So action 4, I think we'll just defeat one of these cultists. So fortunately, we shouldn't have an Evil Stirs for a while, unless the deck shuffled obscenely badly. Anyway, first card from the player deck. As I drop it, but I see that it is an Innsmouth. So potentially getting that over. So getting that over to the hunter in some way, shape, or form would not be a terrible thing. And another Dunwich, which I think we'll plan on using that for travel, actually. Because we're going to need to zip somewhere pretty quickly, I'm sure. So we'll toss Innsmouth. But anyway, we have 3 cards from the summoning deck. So first up, the Historic Inn gets a cultist and the Shoggoth moves. It's probably a good thing I didn't move I stopped before I got to the church. So the Shoggoth moves. Next card up. The Woods, which doesn't get a cultist, but the Shoggoth moves again. So now it's potentially in danger of just moving off the board, which I was afraid of. And The theater, which doesn't get a cultist, but the Shoggoth doesn't come off the board. Unfortunately, we are very much in a precarious position because we basically can't get the... I don't think we can get to that Shoggoth in time. So I think we just focus on... I think we kind of have to risk it for the biscuit here on the sanity front. So we'll move over to the Hunter. For action 1, she's going to move to... she's going to start working back toward Innsmouth, I think. So she's going to move back to the docks. Action 2 to the boardwalk. Action 3, she'll take out this cultist. And then action 4, she'll move up to the factory. And then we'll go ahead and toss Alhazred's Flame to remove up to 4 cultists or a Shoggoth from the board. I want to get this off the board so that I don't have the Shoggoth come off the board and give me another awakening. Anyway, we have to roll a sanity die for that. That's why we got the dice tower and shot. We lose her sanity, but it was worth the risk there. Because we needed that Shoggoth off the board. So let's look at the insane side for the Hunter. Each turn, the first time you enter a location with no cultist, roll a die on any sanity loss result. On any sanity loss result, place 1 cultist instead. Ignore all other results. You still remove all cultists when doing the defeat a cultist action. And the Hunter actually only has 3 actions on the insane side. But if we manage to seal a gate... If we manage to close a gate, then we recover all of our sanity and get moved either to the church or the hospital, and it's our choice. Anyway, that will do it for the Hunter's turn, so we get 2 cards off the player deck. Another Kingsport, which is probably going to be discard fodder, most likely. And... Dunwich, which might also potentially be discard fodder. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm actually going to toss the Kingsport card because I might need Dunwich to travel. Unless I use Dunwich from the Occultist to travel that way. Anyway, 3 cards from the summoning deck we find. The Diner gets Occultist. Diner up here, one of the bus stops in Arkham. Card 2. The police station gets Occultist, which fortunately that's not a dangerous space still. And... the university gets Occultist, and the Shoggoth would have moved off the board, except for the fact that we managed to get the Shoggoth off the board via Alhazred's Flame. But anyway, now we're back over to the Occultist, and I'll zoom in a little bit on her. So action 1, she's going to move to the church. Action 2 to the old mill. Action 3 will discard 5 Dunwich cards. Oop, I put that summoning card in the wrong discard pile. Anyway, 5 Dunwich cards to close the gate at Dunwich. And then action 4, I'll start moving back to try to do a little bit of traveling. But anyway, 2 cards from the player deck. There should be an Evil Stirs coming up fairly soon. There's a Kingsport, which again will probably be discard fodder, and Innsmouth, which moving those over to the Hunter is still kind of going to be the plan here, but we need 3 summoning cards. The Swamp gets Occultist. That's down in Dunwich. I do need to be very careful because now I'm into the second half of the summoning track. The Docks gets Occultist. And the Wharf doesn't get Occultist because of Kingsport. Anyway, that will do it for the Occultist. Back to the Hunter, who's only got 3 actions this turn. Action 1, I think, will be... I wonder if we actually travel to Dunwich, potentially, and grab those Innsmouth cards from the... That's actually not a terrible idea, so I have to move this to any bus station or any location in the town. Okay, so we're on the factory right now, so for action 1, I'll toss... So for action... Actually, let's move up to the... Action 1, we'll toss the Dunwich card for the Hunter to move down to the church. Unfortunately, that is going to trigger a roll of the sanity die because the Hunter is insane. So we'll zoom this out just a little bit. Tip the camera, roll the sanity die. So on any sanity loss roll, we place a Cultist instead. So we place a Cultist there. That was action 1. Then for actions 2 and 3, the Hunter will grab the Innsmouth cards from the Occultist. Then we're going to have to plan on moving Arkham cards back to the Hunters, or back to the Occultist, so we can try to win this game. But we do have to discard, and I'm going to discard the Alien Carving, because right now sanity is very much a precious commodity in the game. So, I kind of want to protect sanity as much as I can. Anyway, 2 cards from the player deck we find. Kingsport, hey, look at that discard fodder. And Dunwich, hey, look at that, more discard fodder. And then we have 3 cards from the summoning deck. First card up. The Boardwalk gets a Cultist. Now we're getting into some dangerous territory because now we're potentially in danger of losing the game if we can't place Cultists. Action 2, or card 2. The Park gets a Cultist. Yep. Wait a minute, wait. Did I do something wrong when I forgot to seal the gate? Then we'll remove 1 Cultist from each location. So, when we sealed Dunwich, we should have removed these Cultists. I didn't do that with Kingsport either, but Kingsport was kind of already in control at that point. So, never mind, we're not in any real danger there. And then card 3. The Cafe gets a Cultist. Which that's actually kind of helpful for the... It's actually moderately helpful, I would say, for the Hunter, because now we can worry about running the... Now we don't have to worry about running the gauntlet so much. But anyway, back to the Occultist's turn. Actions 1 and 2, she'll take Arkham from the Hunter. Action 3, she'll go ahead and defeat this Cultist. And then action 4, I'll go ahead and break some of this up a little bit. So I'll go ahead and use her special ability to move this Cultist at the Park to the Secret Lodge so that the Park doesn't just trigger an outbreak, or doesn't trigger another awakening. Anyway, 2 cards from the player deck we find. Another Evil Stirs, which will move back up top to resolve, and Last Hourglass. The active player may take any clue card from the player discard pile. Anyway, let's move back up top to resolve this Evil Stirs. Alright, first up, rolling the sanity die. Two Cultists on the space. That's going to be fun. We get that out of shot. And then our next old one. Should-A-Mel has done it again. All players collectively lose 3, 4, or 5 sanity tokens with 2, 3, or 4 players. Unfortunately, the Occultist is the only one who has sanity left. We'll take a quick look at her insane side, but once again, Should-A-Mel has stuck it to us again. So So we just lose the Mula Shoggoth action. Yeah, that bastard Shudemel did it to us again. So anyway, since we're already back up top for the Evil Stirs, we'll just wrap the video up here. But that will do it for this playthrough of Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu. Next week we'll be trying to escape from the sinking of Atlantis as we play Atlantis Rising. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.